Dr. Dylan Scorp, Field Biologist. Environmental Survey Log. Date, November 2nd, 2032. 7 years post-exchange. Recording required per. No, there's no protocol anymore. No agency requiring documentation. I'm recording this because someone needs to. Someone needs to document what's happening to the ecosystem. What the radiation did. What it's still doing. I'm at Field Station 7, Columbia River Basin, Washington, Oregon border region. 47 miles from what was Portland. Ground Zero took the city. 500 kiloton ground burst. October 19th, 2025. That was the date. 7 years ago. I wasn't here then. I was at the university. Eugene. 200 miles south. We survived the initial exchange. Fallout came later. Always comes later. The station. It's actually a repurposed ranger station. Solar panels still work. Most of them. Battery storage adequate for recording equipment and basic lab gear. Water from the river. We filter it. Boil it. Filter again. Radiation levels manageable now. 2.3 Roentgen per hour ambient. Livable. Survivable. For now. My daughter Fiona. She's with me. 14 years old. Born 6 months before the war. She doesn't remember the before times. No memory of grocery stores. Or internet. Or anything resembling civilization. This is normal to her. Radiation suits. Geiger counters. Mutated wildlife. This is just the world. She's why I'm documenting this. Not for scientific posterity. Not for future researchers. For her. So she understands what happened. What we lost. What's still happening out there in the forests. In the rivers. In the soil. The ecosystem collapsed. That's the simple version. The technical version. What I'm seeing daily. That's worse. Let me start with what I'm observing today. Then I'll explain how we got here. The timeline. The progression. The point where natural systems stopped functioning. This morning Fiona and I conducted standard survey protocol. Grid section 47. Dense forest. Or what used to be dense forest. Radiation-resistant species survived initially. Douglas fir. Western red cedar. They survived the thermal pulse. Survived the fires. Started recovering. Then the mutations started. I'm looking at my field notes right now. November 2nd. 07:30 hours. Temperature 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity 73%. Ambient radiation 2.1 Roentgen. Within normal range for this region post-exchange. First observation. Douglas fir. Approximately 80 years old based on diameter. Should be healthy specimen. Radiation levels not high enough for immediate die-off. But the tree. Let me describe what I'm seeing. The bark. It's not growing in normal pattern. Twisted. Spiraling. The growth rings. I cored it yesterday. The rings after 2025. They're irregular. Varying thickness. Cellular structure disrupted. The tree's still alive. Still photosynthesizing. But the DNA damage. It's expressing in the growth patterns. That's not the worst part. The needles. They're growing in clusters. Normal Douglas fir has single needles arranged spirally. This tree. Clusters of 5, 7, 12 needles fused at the base. Mutation. Genetic disruption from radiation exposure. The parent tree absorbed fallout. Cesium-137. Strontium-90. It's in the tissue. In the cells. And it's affecting growth. I've documented 347 trees in this grid section over the past 2 months. 91% show mutation characteristics. Bark abnormalities. Needle fusion. Twisted growth. Reduced cone production. The forest is alive. But it's not functioning. Not properly. Fiona asked me this morning. She said, "Dad, if the trees are still growing, isn't that good? Doesn't that mean nature's recovering?" I didn't know how to answer that. How do you explain to a 14-year-old that alive doesn't mean functional? That a forest of mutated trees can't support normal wildlife? Can't produce viable seeds? That we're watching an ecosystem die in slow motion over decades? I told her. I said, "Fiona, the trees are surviving. But they're not thriving. There's a difference." She said, "What's the difference?" I'm still trying to find the words. Second observation. Wildlife survey. We set camera traps 2 weeks ago. Standard motion-activated units. Shoulder powered. Grid sections 45 through 52. Checked them this morning. Downloaded the footage. 73 animal captures over 14 days. Black-tailed deer, elk, coyotes, raccoons. The species that survived, the radiation-resistant ones, were the ones that got lucky with initial exposure levels. But the mutations, deer, adult doe, camera trap 47, timestamp October 28th, 03:17 hours. The animal approaches the camera. I can see it clearly. Facial structure abnormal. Skull deformation. Left eye socket enlarged. Right eye socket reduced. Asymmetrical. Severe cranial mutation. The animal's alive. Moving. Foraging. But the bone structure. It's wrong. Fundamentally wrong. Antler growth on the bucks. Normally symmetrical. Clean points. What I'm seeing on the footage. Twisted. Malformed. Antlers growing in wrong directions. Some growing inward. Toward the skull. I documented one buck where the left antler had penetrated the skull cavity. The animal was still alive. Still mobile. How long it survived like that? I don't know. November 1st, 1842 hours. Massive animal. Should be prime breeding age. But the mutations. Extra limb buds. Vestigial leg growth on the left flank. Underdeveloped. Covered in fur. Just hanging there. Non-functional. The animal favors its right side. Limping. The extra mass throwing off its balance. Fiona saw that footage. She didn't say anything. Just watched. Her face. I know that expression. She's seen it before. Seen it hundreds of times. Mutated animals. Deformed wildlife. It's normal to her. That's what breaks my heart. My daughter thinks this is how nature works. Coyote pack. 6 individuals. Camera trap 48. Multiple captures over 3 days. The pack structure. It's intact. Alpha pair. Subordinate members. They're hunting. Functioning as a unit. But the physical mutations. Visible even on camera footage. Alpha male. Shortened snout. Dental abnormalities. Teeth growing at wrong angles. Malocclusion. The animal can still eat. Can still hunt. But inefficiently. Jaw mechanics disrupted. I watched footage of it trying to tear into a deer carcass. Took 3 times longer than normal coyote feeding behavior. Alpha female. Patchy fur. Alopecia. Radiation-induced. Not mange. I can tell the difference. Sections of exposed skin. Thickened. Lesions. Healing poorly. The animal's grooming itself constantly. Trying to maintain condition. But the fur's not growing back normally. Just. Patches. One of the subordinate coyotes. Juvenile. Maybe 8 months old. Born post-exchange. 2nd generation. The mutations. They're worse. Stunted growth. Shortened legs. Elongated body. Proportions wrong. Dwarfism combined with spinal deformation. The animal keeps pace with the pack. Barely. It's struggling. That's the pattern I'm seeing. 1st generation post-exchange. Adults that survived initial exposure. They have mutations. Cranial deformities. Limb abnormalities. Fur and skin issues. Survivable mutations. Mostly. 2nd generation. Born after the war. The mutations are worse. More severe. More debilitating. The genetic damage compounds. Each generation more affected than the last. I've been documenting this for 3 years. Since we established Field Station 7. 3 years of data. The progression is clear. The wildlife population is declining. Not from immediate radiation death. From accumulated genetic damage making survival progressively harder. 3rd observation. The reason I'm recording this today specifically. The reason this documentation feels urgent. The river. Columbia River. 1/4 mile from the station. I conduct water quality surveys weekly. Standard protocol. Temperature. Turbidity. Macroinvertebrate sampling. Radiation levels. This morning's survey. The macroinvertebrate sample. Normal Columbia River ecosystem. Pre-war. You'd expect mayfly nymphs. Caddisfly larvae. Stonefly nymphs. Diverse insect population. Healthy river system supports hundreds of species. Different niches. Different life strategies. That diversity. That's what makes an ecosystem resilient. My sample this morning. From a riffle section. Good habitat. Oxygenated water. Rocky substrate. Should be prime macroinvertebrate zone. I collected for 30 minutes. Standard kicknet sampling. Processed the sample. Sorted the organisms. 12 individuals. Total. 30 minutes of sampling. 12 organisms. Pre-war survey data for this section. I have the historical records. We recovered some from the university archives. Pre-war sampling. Same location. Same habitat type. Same season. Average catch. 370 individuals per 30-minute sample. 12 versus 370. That's a 96.8% decline. And the species. The 12 I caught. Only 3 species represented. Midge larvae. Aquatic worms. Isopods. The radiation-tolerant species. The scavengers. The generalists. The sensitive species. The mayflies. The stoneflies. The caddisflies. The ones that indicate healthy ecosystem. Gone. Completely gone. I haven't documented a single mayfly nymph in 3 years of surveys. The river is dying. Slowly. Year by year. The insect population's collapsing. And without insects, the fish populations collapse. And without fish, the birds collapse. And without birds, it cascades. The whole system cascading into collapse. Fiona helps me with the surveys. She's good at it. Careful. Methodical. Better than most research assistants I had before the war. She can identify macroinvertebrates by sight now. Knows the orders. The families. The key characteristics. This morning after we processed the sample, she looked at me. She said 12. That's lower than last week. Last week we got 19. She said, is it going to 0? I said I don't know, but I do know. I know exactly where it's going. 0. Complete collapse. Not this year. Maybe not next year. But the trajectory is clear. The data doesn't lie. The ecosystem is dying. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. 4th observation. This is why I'm recording today. Why this feels urgent. Why I need to document what I'm seeing. The soil. I collect soil samples monthly. Standard ecological survey. Measure organic content. pH, nutrient levels. Microbial activity. The soil is the foundation. Everything builds from the soil. If the soil dies, everything dies. Yesterday's samples. Grid section 47. Forest floor. 6 inches depth. The organic layer. Should be rich. Dark. Full of decomposing material. Fungal networks. Bacterial colonies. The microbiome that drives nutrient cycling. The sample. It's gray. Not brown. Not black. Gray. Lifeless. Microbial activity test. I use respiration assays. Measure CO2 production. Indicator of microbial metabolism. Living soil produces measurable CO2. Dead soil produces nothing. Yesterday's sample. 0.03 milligrams CO2 per gram soil per day. Pre-war baseline for this forest type. 15 to 25 milligrams per gram per day. My sample is producing 0.2% of normal microbial activity. The soil is dead. Functionally dead. And without living soil, the trees can't properly absorb nutrients, can't fight disease, can't reproduce successfully. The forest becomes a standing dead zone. Trees that look alive, but aren't really living, just persisting, until they don't. I showed Fiona the data, tried to explain what it means. She's smart. She understands numbers, percentages, decline rates. But understanding numbers isn't the same as understanding what it means. She said, but there's still trees, still animals, still the river. It's not dead. I said, no, it's not dead yet, but it's dying, and we're watching it die. She said, can we fix it? That's the question. Can we fix it? Can anyone fix it? The answer, no, we can't fix it. The radiation is in everything, in the soil, in the water, in the tissue of every living organism. Cesium-137 has a half-life of 30.2 years. It'll be another 23 years before half of it decays. Another 23 years after that before half of what remains decays. Strontium-90, 29-year half-life. Same timeline. The organisms alive today. The trees. The animals. The insects. They're all carrying radioactive isotopes in their tissue. And those isotopes are causing ongoing genetic damage. Mutations, cancers, reproductive failures. And they're passing that damage to the next generation. And the next. Each generation more damaged than the last. This isn't recovery. This is slow extinction. I need to explain how we got here. How I got here. Fiona and I. How we ended up at this field station documenting the death of an ecosystem. The war. October 19th, 2025. I was at the University of Oregon. Eugene. Department of Biology. Forest Ecology Lab. It was Sunday morning. I remember that detail. Sunday. Fiona was 6 months old. My wife Rosalind was home with her. I was at the lab, catching up on data analysis. Research never stops. Even on Sundays. The alert came at 9:47 a.m. Pacific Time. Emergency broadcast. Phone alert. Computer alert. Everything at once. This is not a test. Ballistic missile threat inbound. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a test. I was holding my coffee mug. Just standing there. Reading the alert. Thinking this has to be wrong. Has to be a system error. False alarm. They happen. Technical glitches. Someone pushes wrong button. The alert gets canceled in 5 minutes. Everything goes back to normal. I called Rosalind. Line was busy. Network overload. Everyone calling everyone. Trying to reach family. Trying to understand. Trying to. Panic. That's what it was. Just panic. I tried again. Still busy. Third try. Fourth. Fifth. The alert on my computer updated. Multiple detonations confirmed. West Coast cities. Seattle. Portland. San Francisco. Los Angeles. San Diego. East Coast. Chicago. Strategic exchange. Full scale. Portland is 98 miles north of Eugene. 98 miles. If Portland got hit. If a 500 kiloton warhead. The fallout plume. Wind patterns. Prevailing westerlies. Northwest to southeast. Eugene was directly downwind. I left the lab. Ran to my car. Traffic was already gridlocked. Everyone had the same idea. Get home. Get to family. Get somewhere safe. Somewhere safe. There was nowhere safe. 20-minute drive normally. Took an hour and 40 minutes. The whole time trying to call Rosalind. Network was down completely. No connection. Just silence. Dead air. I got home at 11:38. Rosalind was in the basement with Fiona. She'd seen the alerts. Brought water. Food. Blankets. Radio. She was always better at emergency prep than me. Always prepared. Always thinking ahead. Fiona was crying. 6 months old. Didn't understand. Just knew her mother was scared. Babies sense that. They know. The radio. Emergency broadcast system. Repeating same message. Multiple nuclear detonations confirmed. Remain indoors. Seal windows and doors. Await further instructions. Do not attempt evacuation. Portland detonated at 9:51 a.m. For minutes after initial alert. Ground burst. Estimated yield 500 kilotons. Direct hit on downtown. 300,000 casualties. Estimated. The number felt abstract. 300,000. How do you comprehend that many people dying in 1 second? We stayed in the basement. 3 days. Water ran out on day 2. We rationed. Made it stretch to day 4. Day 3 the radiation detector I had from the lab. Borrowed it years ago for field work. Never returned it. It started climbing. 5 Roentgen per hour. 10. 15. 20. 20 Roentgen per hour. Cumulative dose adds up fast. We were getting 2 rem per hour. 48 rem per day. Medical threshold for acute radiation syndrome. 50 rem. We crossed that threshold on day 2. Rosalind started showing symptoms on day 4. Nausea. Vomiting. That's how it starts. I knew the progression. Studied radiobiology in grad school. Academic interest. Never thought. Never imagined. Prodromal phase. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Lasts hours to days. Then latent phase. Symptoms disappear. False recovery. Feels better. But it's not better. It's just the calm before the manifest illness phase. Rosalind went into latent phase on day 6. She felt better. Said she was fine. Said we'd be okay. Said Fiona would be okay. I didn't correct her. Didn't tell her the truth. What was the point? Let her have hope. Let her believe. Day 14. Manifest illness phase began. bleeding gums, petechiae, small hemorrhages under the skin, hair loss. I knew what it meant. Bone marrow failure. Her white blood cell count crashing. No immune system. No way to fight infection. No way to produce new blood cells. Fiona was nursing. Still breastfeeding at 6 months. Rosalind was passing radioactive isotopes through breast milk. Passing the contamination directly to our daughter. I didn't know how to stop it. Formula supplies were gone. Water was contaminated. We had no choice. I tried everything I could think of. Found antibiotics in the medicine cabinet. Gave them to Rosalind. Tried to prevent infection. Tried to keep her comfortable. But radiation sickness doesn't respond to antibiotics. Doesn't respond to anything. You just watch and wait. Day 23. Rosalind died. November 11th, 2025. Hemorrhagic complications. Internal bleeding. She bled out. In our basement. In our home. While I held Fiona. 6-month-old baby. Watching her mother die. I couldn't bury her properly. Ground radiation levels too high. 5 Röntgen per hour outside. I couldn't dig. Couldn't spend that much time exposed. I wrapped her body. Placed it in the garage. Sealed the door. It was the best I could do. Fiona survived. Somehow. 6 months old. Nursing from contaminated mother. Receiving radiation dose through breast milk. She survived. Lower body mass means higher dose per kilogram. Children are more radiosensitive than adults. She should have died. The statistics said she should have died, but she didn't. I stayed in Eugene for 2 months. Scavenging. Finding food. Finding clean water. There wasn't clean water. Everything was contaminated. I filtered. Boiled. Filtered again. Did everything I could. Kept Fiona alive. That was the only goal. Keep Fiona alive. Nothing else mattered. Other survivors. There were others. Pockets of people who survived. Some organized. Some feral. Resources were scarce. Violence became common. I avoided groups. Kept to myself. Kept Fiona hidden. Kept moving. I had the lab keys. University was abandoned. Everyone dead or evacuated or hiding. I went back. Gathered equipment. Geiger counters. Radiation suits. Survey tools. Field guides. If we were going to survive, I needed to understand the environment. Needed to know what was safe. What wasn't. What was changing. That's when I started documenting. Started surveying. Started trying to understand what the radiation was doing to the ecosystem. Not academic anymore. Survival. If I could understand how organisms were responding, where radiation was concentrated, where it was safer, that was survival information. Month 4. February 2026. I found a ham radio in the university electronics lab. Got it working. Started monitoring frequencies. Started hearing other survivors. Some organized into communities. Some at research stations. Some just alone. Like me. That's how I heard about Field Station 7. Columbia River Basin. Group of scientists establishing monitoring station. Documenting environmental changes. They needed a biologist. Someone who understood forest ecology. Aquatic systems. They had supplies. Water filtration. Medicine. Security. I made contact. Explained my background. Forest ecologist. PhD in ecosystem dynamics. Field experience. They said come. Said they'd take Fiona. Said they had a doctor. Said they could check her for radiation sickness. See if she was going to survive. I walked. Carried Fiona. Carried supplies. 170 miles. Took 19 days. Avoided major roads. Avoided fallout hotspots. Navigated by Geiger counter. Found the pockets of lower radiation. Moved through them. Slowly. Fiona was 10 months old when we arrived at Field Station 7. March 15th, 2026. The doctor examined her. Dr. Pemberton. Older man. Survived by luck. He ran blood tests. White cell count. Platelet count. Looking for radiation damage. Her counts were low. Not critical, but low. Bone marrow damage. Mild, recoverable maybe. He said she might make it. Might develop normally. Might not. Too early to tell. Radiation effects can manifest years later. Cancers. Leukemia. Developmental problems. We'd have to watch. And wait, she's 14 now. 7 years later. No cancer. No leukemia. Growth and development normal. She survived. Against odds. Against statistics. My daughter survived, but the ecosystem didn't. Field Station 7. When we arrived, there were 12 people. Scientists. Technicians. Former park rangers. We established protocols. Survey grids. Monitoring schedules. Documentation procedures. We were going to track the recovery. Document how nature rebounds after nuclear war. That was the plan. The hope. Year 1. 2026. The immediate die-off. Animals that received lethal doses in the initial fallout. Plants that couldn't survive the radiation. We documented. We counted. We mapped the dead zones. The hot spots. The areas where nothing survived. But we also documented survivors. Pockets of resistance. Species that tolerated higher radiation. Douglas fir. Western red cedar. Black-tailed deer. Elk. Coyotes. They were surviving. Numbers reduced. But surviving. We thought. We hoped. This is the foundation. Nature will rebuild from these survivors. Year 2. 2027. The mutations started appearing. First generation born after the war. Animals born in contaminated environment. From contaminated parents. The genetic damage expressing. Visible deformities. Cranial malformations. Limb abnormalities. But the animals were alive. Functioning. We documented. We measured. We said, look, nature is resilient. Life finds a way. Year 3. 2028. The population declines began. Not from radiation death. From reduced reproduction. Females having fewer offspring. Higher infant mortality. Mutations making survival harder. Animals dying younger. Not reaching breeding age. The math. The population dynamics. It was clear. Populations declining. Not recovering. Declining. Year 4. 2029. The soil surveys. That's when I started understanding. The foundation was failing. The microbial communities in the soil. They weren't recovering. They were declining. Radiation-sensitive bacteria dying off. Fungi dying. The decomposition pathways breaking down. Organic matter not cycling properly. Nutrients not available. The whole system. The foundation. It was eroding. I presented my findings to the group. To the other researchers at Field Station 7. I showed them the data. Soil respiration declining. Macroinvertebrate diversity dropping. Tree reproduction failing. Population trajectories negative. I said we're not documenting recovery. We're documenting collapse. Slow collapse. Generational collapse. This isn't resilience. This is death. Just. Slower than we thought. Dr. Pemberton. He looked at the data. He said, how long? How long until complete collapse? I said, I don't know. Decades maybe. The system's degrading. But it's slow. Each generation slightly more damaged. Slightly less viable. Eventually it reaches a threshold. A tipping point. Where the system can't sustain itself anymore. Where the remaining populations are too small. Too damaged. Too genetically compromised. And it collapses completely. He said, can we stop it? I said no. The radiation's in everything. In the soil. In the water. In every living organism. It's not going away. Not in our lifetimes. Not in Fiona's lifetime. Not for generations. And every day those organisms are being damaged. Every day the mutations accumulate. Every day the system gets weaker. We can document it. We can measure it. We can't stop it. That was 4 years ago. Since then, the declines accelerated. Year 5. 2030. Fish populations collapsed. Salmon runs failed. Used to be thousands of salmon returning to spawn. Columbia River and tributaries. We documented 17 individuals. 17. Trying to swim upstream to spawning grounds. Their bodies. Tumors. Lesions. They spawned. We monitored the reds. The nests. 40% of eggs failed to develop. Of the 60% that hatched, survival rate to fry stage, 12%. And of those fry, how many survived to return as adults? We're still counting. But the numbers, they're catastrophic. Year 6, 2031. Bird populations. The surveys showed 87% decline from pre-war baseline. Raptors, songbirds, waterfowl, some species completely gone. Haven't seen a bald eagle in 3 years. Used to be common along the river. Dozens of nesting pairs. Gone. Last documented sighting. April 2031. Single individual. Emaciated. Couldn't fly properly. Found it dead 2 days later. Starvation. The fish were gone. Eagle starved. This year. 2032. Year 7. The tree die-off started. Not immediate radiation death. Delayed mortality. Trees that survived the initial blast. Survived the fallout. They're dying now. Whole stands. Turning brown. Needles dropping. Bark sloughing off. We're trying to understand why now. Why 7 years later? The hypothesis. Accumulated genetic damage. Accumulated stress. Depleted soil nutrients. Multiple stressors compounding. The trees just giving up. Can't fight anymore. Can't maintain basic life functions. They're dying. And if the trees die, if the forest dies completely, everything that depends on the forest dies. The animals, the birds, the insects, the microbes, everything. Complete ecosystem collapse. Not theoretical anymore. Not decades away. It's happening. Right now. And we're watching it happen. Fiona sees it. She's been here since she was 10 months old. This is all she knows. Mutated animals. Dying trees. Empty rivers. Contaminated everything. This is normal to her. Last week, we were conducting a survey. Grid section 49. Found a dead deer. Young doe. Maybe 2 years old. Born post-war. Second generation. The body. I need to describe this. I need Fiona to understand why I'm documenting. The deer. It had died recently. Within 24 hours based on decomposition. No predation. I performed field necropsy, trying to understand cause of death. External examination. Severe cranial deformation. Left side of skull compressed. Right side bulging. Asymmetrical. Eyes different sizes. Nostrils malformed. But the animal had been alive. Had been walking. Foraging. Surviving. Despite the deformities. Internal examination. That's where. The organs. Multiple tumors. Liver. Spleen. Kidneys. Lungs. Cancerous masses. The animal was riddled with cancer. Radiation induced. Living with multiple organ systems failing. And still, it had been trying to survive. Right up until it couldn't anymore. Fiona helped with the necropsy. She's assisted dozens of times. She knows procedure. Knows anatomy. She was taking notes. Recording observations. Clinical. Professional. Like this is normal. Like performing necropsy on cancer-riddled mutant deer is just. Wednesday, after we finished, she asked. She said, "Dad, are all the animals like this? All of them dying from cancer and mutations?" I said yes. Most of them. The ones we're seeing. The ones surviving long enough to observe. They're all carrying radiation damage. All developing cancers. All struggling. The ones dying young. We never see. They die as juveniles. As infants. Before we can document them. She said, "How long? How long until they're all gone?" That's the question. How long until complete collapse? How long until the last animal dies? The last tree? The last functional ecosystem component? I ran the models. Using 7 years of data. Population decline rates. Reproductive failure rates. Mortality rates. I extrapolated. Made projections. 15 to 25 years. That's the estimate. 15 to 25 years until complete ecosystem collapse in this region. Until the wildlife populations are too small, too genetically damaged. Until the forests are dead. Until the rivers are sterile. Until there's nothing left but contaminated soil and dead trees and silence. Fiona will be 29 to 39 years old. She'll watch it happen. Watch the entire ecosystem die. Watch the last animals. The last viable trees. The last. Everything. She'll witness the end. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. Nothing anyone can do. The damage is done. The radiation's in everything. And it's killing everything. Just. Slowly. Over decades instead of seconds. But the outcome's the same. Death. November 2nd. The reason I'm recording this specific documentation today, why this feels urgent, critical, why Fiona needs to understand what I'm about to show her. We conducted the monthly survey at Grid Section 47. Standard protocol, wildlife cameras, soil samples, vegetation assessment, macroinvertebrate sampling. We've been surveying this section for 3 years. Baseline data established. Tracking changes. Documenting decline. The wildlife camera. Camera trap 47 Delta. We placed it 3 weeks ago, October 12th. Motion activated. Positioned at a game trail. Water source nearby. Creek feeding into the Columbia. Good location for wildlife traffic. We expected deer, elk, coyotes, maybe bear. We still see bears occasionally. Grizzlies. Surviving. Barely. Downloaded the footage this morning. Fiona operated the laptop. She's better with the technology than me. Better at navigating the file systems. Finding the video files. Organizing data. She's meticulous. Careful. Good researcher. The footage. 3 weeks of recordings. We started reviewing chronologically. Standard procedure. Document all captures. Species identification. Behavior notes. Physical condition assessment. Looking for mutations. For abnormalities. For changes. First week. Normal captures. Deer. For individuals. 2 does. 1 buck. 1 yearling. All showing mutation characteristics. Cranial asymmetry on the does. Antler deformation on the buck. The yearling. Shortened front legs. Dwarfism. Standard observations. Nothing unusual for this region. Nothing we haven't seen before. Coyote. Single individual. October 15th. 2300 hours. Night footage. Infrared. The animal approaches camera. Stops. Looks directly at lens. 3 seconds. Then moves on. Typical behavior. The coyote. Severe hair loss. Alopecia. Exposed skin visible. Thickened. Lesions. We've documented this individual before. Recognized it from previous captures. Same pack. Same territory. Still surviving. Still hunting. Despite the condition. Raccoon. October 18th. 0430 hours. 2 individuals. Adult and juvenile. Foraging behavior. Turning over rocks. Looking for invertebrates. Grubs. Insects. The adult. Partial tail. Severed or necrosis. Can't tell from footage. The juvenile. Normal size. No obvious deformities visible on camera. Rare. Finding individual without visible mutation. Rare. That was first week. Reviewing footage. Fiona taking notes. Documenting everything. Standard survey. Expected results. Nothing remarkable. Just continued documentation of decline. Of mutation. Of survival despite everything. Second week. Elk. October 22nd. 1600 hours. Small herd. 5 individuals. 3 cows. On a bull. 1 calf. The calf. Born this spring. Mare June probably. Second generation post-war. The footage. The calf's legs. All 4 legs. Severe angular limb deformity. Knees bent wrong direction. Fetlocks collapsed. The animal. It can barely walk. Hobbling. Mother stays close. Protecting it. But the calf. It won't survive. Can't keep pace. Can't escape predators. Can't forage effectively. It's dying. Just slowly. Fiona saw the footage. She stopped the playback. She said that calf. It's in pain. We should. She didn't finish. Should what? Put it out of its misery? We can't. We don't intervene. We document. That's protocol. That's all we can do. Document and watch and record and understand. Not intervene. Nature has to. Nature has to run its course. Even when nature's course is prolonged suffering. I said, Fiona, we're scientists. We observe. We don't interfere. She said, I know. Her voice. Quiet. Flat. Accepting. She knows the rules. Knows why they exist. But knowing doesn't make it easier. Second week continued. More deer. More coyotes. 1 cougar. October 25th. Brief capture. 2 seconds. The cougar. Moving fast. Thin. Ribs visible. Starving. Prey populations declining. Predators starving. Simple ecology. Simple math. Fewer prey equals fewer predators. The system collapsing from bottom up and top down simultaneously. Third week. October 29th. 0900 hours. Daylight footage. Clear visibility. That's when we saw it. The thing I need to document. The thing Fiona needs to understand. The deer. Adult doe. Approaches the camera. Normal behavior initially. Moving along game trail. Then, it stops. Turns toward camera. Just stands there. 30 seconds. 40 seconds. A minute. Just standing. Staring at the camera. I can see it clearly. Full body visible. The mutations. They're extreme. Worse than anything we've documented. Worse than anything I've seen in 7 years of surveys. The head. Cranial structure. I'm trying to find words. Clinical description. Scientific observation. But it's hard. The skull is misshapen. Severely. One side compressed. Other side bulging. Extended. The face. Asymmetrical doesn't capture it. Distorted. Warped. Eyes different sizes. Different heights on the skull. One pointing forward. One pointing sideways. Nostrils. Malformed. Breathing visible. Labored. Difficult. The body. Spinal curvature. Scoliosis. Severe. Back arched wrong direction. Ribs visible. One side. Malformation of rib cage. The legs. 3 normal legs. 4th leg. Left rear. Shortened. Underdeveloped. The animal. It walks with 3-legged gait. Hobbling. The shortened leg just. Dragging. Not weight bearing. But the animal's alive. Moving. Functioning. Somehow. Despite the severe deformities. Despite what should be incompatible with life. It's alive. Fiona watched the footage. She didn't say anything. Just watched. The doe standing there. Staring at the camera. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Finally it moves on. Limps away. Disappears from frame. Fiona said that animal. It shouldn't be alive. Should it? I said no. By normal standards. Those deformities. That level of mutation. It shouldn't survive. Shouldn't be mobile. But it is. It's alive. And that's what I need you to understand. This is what we're documenting. Not recovery. Not resilience. Not nature bouncing back. This. Animals that shouldn't exist. Living anyway. Suffering anyway. Surviving long enough to breed maybe. Passing those mutations to the next generation. Making the next generation worse. She said what happens to its offspring. If it breeds, I said the mutations get worse. Genetic damage accumulates. First generation had moderate deformities. Second generation had severe deformities. Third generation. If there is a third generation, the mutations will be even more severe, more debilitating, more incompatible with life. At some point, the mutations become lethal. At some point, the offspring die as embryos, as fetuses, at birth, before they can reproduce. And that's when the population goes extinct. Fiona said how many generations? Before extinction? I said based on the data, based on what we're seeing. 3 to 5 generations. Maybe. The animal's alive now. First and second generation post-war. They're still reproducing. Barely. Third generation. We're starting to see them. Born this year. Last year. The survival rates. They're catastrophic. 50% mortality before age 1. Of the 50% that survive, most won't reach breeding age. Won't reproduce. 4th generation. If there is a 4th generation, I don't think they'll be viable. I don't think they'll survive at all. She was quiet. Processing. Thinking. Finally she said in 5th generation. I said there won't be a 5th generation. The populations will be extinct before then. We continued reviewing footage. The rest of 3rd week. More animals. More mutations. But that doe. That severely deformed individual. That's the one that stays with me. That's the one Fiona can't stop thinking about. I know because she keeps bringing it up. After we finished the survey. After we processed all the data. We were eating dinner. Rehydrated beans. Dried venison. Contaminated. Everything's contaminated. We filter the water. Cook the meat thoroughly. Hope that reduces the radiation dose. Hope that's enough. It's not enough. But it's all we can do. Fiona said, do you think that doe is in pain? The really deformed one? I said yes. Almost certainly. The spinal curvature. The malformed joints. The skull deformation. All of that causes chronic pain. Constant pain. And there's no treatment. No way to help. The animal dies. She said that's cruel. Nature shouldn't. It shouldn't be like that. I said nature isn't cruel or kind. Nature just is. What we're seeing. This isn't natural selection. This is radiation damage, overwhelming natural selection. Normal selection. Animals with severe deformities don't survive. Don't reproduce. Don't pass on genes. The mutations get filtered out. But here, now, the mutation rate is so high. Every animal has mutations. There's no selection pressure. The damaged individuals reproduce, pass on damage, make the next generation worse. Natural selection can't fix this. The radiation's too pervasive. The damage too widespread. Selection has nothing to work with. She said, so we just watch. We just document while everything dies. While everything suffers. I said yes. That's what we do. We're scientists. We observe. We record. We understand. That's our job. Understanding doesn't stop the suffering. Doesn't change the outcome. But someone needs to document this. Someone needs to record what happened. What's still happening. So that people in the future, if there are people in the future, they'll know. They'll understand what nuclear war actually does. Not just to cities. Not just to people. To everything. To the entire planet. To ecosystems. To species. To the foundation of life itself. Fiona said, what if there's nobody in the future to read the documentation? That's the question. What if there's nobody left? What if humanity doesn't survive? What if we're documenting the death of the world for an audience that will never exist? I don't have an answer. I just keep documenting. Because what else can I do? The soil samples from this morning. I processed them this afternoon, while Fiona reviewed the camera footage. Standard protocol. Respiration assay. Microbial activity assessment. Grid section 47. Forest floor. 6 inches depth. The sample. Gray. Lifeless. Same as last month. Same as the month before. The respiration rate. 0.02 milligrams CO2 per gram soil per day. Last month it was 0.03. The month before that, 0.04. It's declining. Month by month. The soil is dying. The foundation is eroding. And there's nothing growing to replace it. No new organic matter. No new microbial colonization. Just steady decline towards zero. Zero microbial activity. Dead soil. And in dead soil, nothing grows. Nothing lives. Nothing functions. I showed Fiona the results. The numbers. The trend line. Month by month. Year by year. Declining towards zero. She said, when does it hit zero? I said, at current rate. 18 to 24 months. Less than 2 years. This section of forest. The soil will be functionally dead in less than 2 years. She said, and then what? What happens to the trees? I said, they die. Without living soil. Without functional nutrient cycling. The trees can't survive. They'll persist for a while. Maybe years. Living on stored reserves. But eventually they'll use up their reserves. And they'll die. All of them. Every tree in this section. Dead within 5 to 10 years after soil death. She said, and we're just going to watch it happen. We're going to document the trees dying. The last trees. The last forest. Just watching. I said yes. That's what we're going to do. Because that's all we can do. Document. Understand. Record. For whoever comes after. If anyone comes after. Fiona left the station. Went outside. I watched her through the window. She walked to the river. Stood at the bank. Just stood there. Looking at the water. The contaminated water. The dying river. The ecosystem collapsing around her. She's 14 years old. She spent her entire conscious life watching the world die. Watching nature fail. Watching extinction happen in real time. This is all she knows. Mutated animals. Dying trees. Dead soil. Collapsing ecosystems. This is normal to her. And that's what breaks me. My daughter thinks extinction is normal. Thinks suffering is inevitable. Thinks death is all there is. I joined her at the river, stood next to her, didn't say anything. What could I say? What words make this better? What explanation makes sense of a world destroyed by humans? By weapons? By choices made by people who never had to live with the consequences? Finally, she said, do you think anyone survived? Anywhere? Do you think there are places where the ecosystem isn't collapsing? Where animals are normal? Where trees are healthy? I said I don't know. Maybe. Maybe in the southern hemisphere. Maybe in remote regions. Places far from targets. Far from fallout plumes. Maybe. But I don't know. We haven't had contact with other regions in years. The communication networks. They failed. We're isolated. Just us. Just this station. Just this dying forest. I don't know what's happening anywhere else. She said, but you think. Probably. Probably everywhere's like this. Everywhere's dying. I said yes. Probably. The fallout. It went stratospheric. Global distribution. The radiation went everywhere. Different concentrations. Different levels. But everywhere got contaminated. Everywhere's experiencing the same processes. Mutation. Decline. Collapse. Maybe it's slower in some places. Maybe some ecosystems are more resilient. But the trajectory, the endpoint, it's probably the same. Everywhere. She said, then what's the point? What's the point of documenting? Of understanding? If everything's dying anyway? If there's no one to save? Nothing to fix? What's the point? That's the question. What is the point? Why am I documenting the death of an ecosystem? Why am I training my daughter to be a scientist in a world where science can't save anything? Can't fix anything? Can only watch and record and understand while everything dies? I said the point is knowledge. Understanding. Someone needs to witness this. Someone needs to record what happened. What we did. What we lost. Even if no one ever reads it. Even if there's no future. We still document. We still try to understand. Because that's what makes us human. Not giving up. Not surrendering to despair. Continuing to search for truth. For knowledge. For meaning. Even when there's no hope. Maybe especially when there's no hope. Fiona said, that's not very comforting. I said, I know. I'm sorry. I don't have anything comforting to tell you. This is the world we live in. The world I brought you into. The world you have to survive in. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this. Couldn't give you a better world. Couldn't change what happened. I'm sorry. She didn't respond. Just stood there, looking at the river. The dying river. The contaminated water flowing past. Carrying radiation downstream. Spreading contamination. Spreading death. Slowly. Invisibly. Inevitably. We stood there for a long time. Father and daughter. Scientists. Witnesses. Watching the world die. Documenting the end. Because that's what we do. That's all we can do. Year 12. November 2nd, 2037. 5 years since the last recording. 5 years since I documented the severely deformed doe. The collapsing soil. The dying river. Fiona is 19 now. Adult. Researcher in her own right. She runs most of the surveys independently. She's better at field work than I am now. Faster. More efficient. More thorough. She's been doing this since she was 10 months old. This is all she knows. All she's ever known. Field Station 7. Population 3. Down from 12 when we arrived. Dr. Pemberton died 4 years ago. Heart failure. Age and stress and contaminated food and accumulated radiation dose. No medical intervention possible. No cardiac care. He died in his sleep. We buried him in the station cemetery. 11 graves now. 11 people who came here hoping to document recovery. Hoping to witness nature's resilience. They witnessed collapse instead. And then they died. 3 of us left. Me, Fiona, and Kieran Blackwell, former park ranger, 63 years old. Survived the war by luck. Survived the aftermath by stubbornness. He maintains the station. Repairs equipment. Manages supplies. Keeps us functional. Keeps us alive. The surveys. We're still conducting them. Still documenting. Grid sections 45 through 52. 8 grid sections. 82 square kilometers. That's our study area. Our responsibility. Our witness area. 5 years of additional data. The trends. They continued. Accelerated. The collapse I predicted. The timeline I calculated. It was accurate. 18 to 24 months until soil death. The soil in grid section 47. It's dead. Microbial respiration. 0. Measured last month. 0.00 milligrams CO2 per gram per day. Within margin of error of 0. No microbial activity. Dead soil. The trees. The Douglas fir forest in section 47. 93% mortality. The trees are standing. Dead but standing. Snags. Gray wood. No needles. No bark. Just dead timber. Slowly decomposing. But without soil microbes. Without functional decomposition pathways. The trees aren't breaking down properly. Just standing there. Dead monuments. Dead forest. Permanent testimony to what we destroyed. The 7% still alive. They're dying. Stress symptoms. Count die back. Reduced needle retention. They're persisting. Not thriving. Not recovering. Just lingering. Using stored reserves. But the reserves. They're finite. Another 2 to 3 years. They'll be dead too. 100% mortality. Complete forest death. The wildlife. The populations. Let me state the numbers. Current survey data. November 2037. Grid sections 45 through 52. Black-tailed deer. Population estimate. 14 individuals. Down from approximately 200 pre-war. 93% decline. The 14 individuals. All showing severe mutation characteristics. Third and fourth generation post-war. Born into contaminated environment. From contaminated parents. The genetic damage. It's catastrophic. I'll describe what we're documenting. What Fiona documents every day. Deer we're tracking. Individual Alpha 7. Fourth generation. Born spring 2036. Age 18 months. The mutations. Both eyes non-functional. Blind. Bilateral microphthalmia. Eyes underdeveloped. Vision gone. The animal navigates by sound. By smell. It's surviving. Barely. We've documented it for a year. Weight declining. Browsing inefficient. Can't see predators. Can't see obstacles. Can't see food efficiently. It's starving. Slowly. We give it 3 months. Maybe. Before starvation or predation kills it. Individual Beta 3. Third generation. Born spring 2034. Age 3.5 years. Old for post-war deer. Most don't survive past 2 years. This individual. It survived. The mutations. Spinal deformity. Lordosis. Extreme. Back curved, vertebrae misaligned. The animal drags itself. Front legs functional. Back legs dragging. It moves maybe 50 meters per day. Can't escape predators. Can't forage efficiently. Can't reproduce. Why is it still alive? I don't know. How does it avoid predation? Luck maybe. Or the predators are too sick to hunt effectively. Or the predators are dead. Or dying. Everything's dying. Individual Gamma 9. Fourth generation. Born this spring. 2037. Age 7 months. This one stays with me. The mutations. No lower jaw. The jawbones. They didn't develop. Upper jaw present. Lower jaw absent. The animal can't eat solid food. It's still nursing. At 7 months. Still dependent on mother. But the mother. Starving. She can't produce enough milk. The fawn. Individual Gamma 9. It's dying. Starvation. But slowly. Taking months. We're documenting it. Week by week. Weight loss. Weakness. Eventual death. We're watching a 7-month-old animal starve to death because its jaw didn't form. Because the radiation damaged the developmental pathway. Because this is what we did to the world. Fiona. She's the one documenting Gamma 9. She takes the measurements. The photos. The behavioral notes. She does it clinically. Professionally. No emotion. Just data. Just observation. That's how she survives. By not feeling. By not connecting. By treating the animals as data points. As specimens. Not as living, suffering creatures. That's what I taught her. That's what she had to learn. To survive this. To function as a scientist in a dying world. You can't feel. You can't empathize. You can't mourn every dying animal. Every failed birth. Every mutation. You'd go insane. You'd break. So you shut it off. You document. You observe. You don't feel. My daughter is 19 years old. She's never known a world where animals don't suffer, where forests don't die, where ecosystems function. She's never seen a healthy deer, a normal tree, a functional river. Never. And she never will. Elk. Population estimate. 0. Last documented individual died April 2036. 18 months ago. Elk are extinct in our survey area. Gone completely. The last individual. We tracked it for 3 months. Adult cow. 3rd generation. The mutations. Multiple tumors. Visible externally. Mass on left shoulder. Size of basketball. Mass on neck. Size of softball. It could barely move. Barely breathe. But it kept trying. Kept living. Until it couldn't anymore. We found the carcass. Performed necropsy. The tumors. Dozens of them. Internal organs. Lungs. Liver. Kidneys. Intestines. Filled with cancerous masses. The animal had been living with multiple organ systems failing. For how long? Months probably. Maybe longer. Living in constant pain. Constant suffering. Until finally death came. Finally it ended. Fiona performed the necropsy. She was 17. She opened the body cavity. Saw the tumors. Saw the extent of the damage. She documented it. Photographed it. Measured it. Wrote the notes. Clinical. Professional. Detached. That's what I taught her. That's what she had to become. To survive this. Coyotes. Population estimate. 3 individuals. Down from approximately 50 pre-war. The 3 individuals. Single pack. Alpha pair and 1 subordinate. The subordinate. Juvenile. Born last spring. 4th generation. The mutations. Shortened limbs. Dwarfism. Dental abnormalities. Severe malocclusion. The animal can barely eat. Can barely hunt. It's dependent on the alpha pair. They feed it. Regurgitated food. Like feeding a pup. But it's not a pup. It's 7 months old. Should be independent. Should be learning to hunt. It can't. The mutations prevent normal development. Normal behavior. It's going to die. Starvation. Or when the alpha pair dies. Or gets too weak to hunt. Then it starves. That's the future. That's guaranteed. The alpha pair. They're old. For post-war coyotes. 5 years old maybe. Both 2nd generation. Born year 1 or 2 post-war. The mutations. Hair loss. Visible tumors. Mobility issues. They're dying. Maybe 1 year left. Maybe less. And when they die, the pack dies. The coyotes in our survey area. Extinct. Gone. That's what's coming. Soon. Bears. Grizzly bears. Last documented individual. November 2034. 3 years ago. Haven't seen a bear since. They're gone. Extinct in this region. Either dead or moved on. Trying to find better habitat. Better food sources. There aren't better areas. Everywhere's the same. Everywhere's dying. But they moved on anyway. Trying to survive. They're dead somewhere else now. I'm sure of it. Cougars. Last documented. March 2035. 2.5 years ago. Gone. Extinct or extirpated. Same as bears. Top predators die first. Or last. Depends on perspective. They die first because prey populations collapse. Nothing to eat. They die last because they were the strongest. The most resilient. Until they weren't. Until the starvation and the radiation and the cancer killed them too. Birds. 97% decline from pre-war baseline. The 3% remaining. Crows. Ravens. Scavengers. Radiation resistant. Eating contaminated carrion. Accumulating dose. Developing cancers. Dying. But reproducing just fast enough. Just barely fast enough. To replace losses. For now. How long that continues, I don't know. Their eggs. Fertility rate 41%. Down from 90% pre-war. At some point, the fertility rate drops below replacement. At some point, the population can't sustain itself. At some point, the crows die too. Everything dies. Fish. Salmon. 0. The runs failed completely. Years ago. Haven't seen a salmon in the Columbia River in 4 years. They're extinct. Wild Pacific salmon. Extinct. The species that define this river, that define this ecosystem, that fed the forests, the bears, the eagles, the otters, everything. Gone. Extinct. In 7 years. No, 12 years. 12 years from war to extinction. That's how long it took to erase millions of years of evolution. 12 years. Macroinvertebrates. River survey last week. 30-minute kicknet sample. 3 organisms. Total. Down from 12 5 years ago. Down from 370 pre-war. 3 organisms. All midge larvae. Pollution tolerant. Radiation tolerant. The last insects. The last aquatic life. 3 individuals in 30 minutes of sampling. Fiona said we should stop sampling. Said there's no point. Nothing left to document. The river's dead. The forest's dead. The wildlife's dying. What are we documenting? The last gasps? The final extinctions? What's the point? I said we keep sampling. We document to the end. To complete extinction. Because someone needs to witness this. Someone needs to record how long it took. How the collapse progressed. Stage by stage. Species by species. That's our job. That's what we do. We witness. We document. Even when. Especially when there's nothing left. She said you taught me to be a scientist. To observe. To record. To understand. But what's there to understand? We know what happened. Radiation killed everything. Mutations accumulated. Populations collapsed. Ecosystems died. We understand. We've understood for years. What more is there? I said we document the timeline. The progression. The endpoint. Future researchers. If there are future researchers, they'll need this data. They'll need to know how long ecosystems persist after nuclear war. How many generations before extinction. What the mutation patterns were. What the collapse looked like. That's knowledge. That's important. That matters. She said to who? Who does it matter to? Everyone's dead. Everyone's dying. We're dying. The whole biosphere's dying. Who's going to read our documentation? Who's going to care? I didn't have an answer. I still don't have an answer. The station. We're running low on supplies. Food. Medicine. Replacement parts. We've been scavenging from abandoned settlements. Abandoned cities. Portland. Seattle. What's left of them? But the scavengers. There's competition. Other survivor groups. Some friendly. Some not. We avoid contact. Stay isolated. Stay at the station. Make do with what we have. Fiona's showing symptoms. Started 3 months ago. Fatigue. Weakness. Easy bruising. I ran blood tests. Our medical supplies. They're limited. But I have a microscope. I have basic hematology capability. Her white blood cell count. It's dropping. Platelets dropping. Lymphocytes abnormal. The signs. They're clear. Leukemia. Radiation-induced. Delayed onset. She was exposed as an infant. Through breast milk. Through contaminated food. Through ambient radiation. 14 years of accumulated dose. Now it's expressing. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. That's my diagnosis. Based on symptoms. Based on blood work. Based on what I'm seeing. Treatment. There is no treatment. No radiation therapy. Ironic. Radiation caused it. Radiation could treat it. We have neither. No drugs. No equipment. No specialized care. Nothing. Just supportive care. Keep her comfortable. Manage symptoms. And wait. And watch. And document. Even this. Even my daughter dying. I'm documenting it. Because that's what I do. That's what she taught me to do. Keep recording. Keep observing. To the end. I asked her. 2 weeks ago. I said, Fiona, do you want to stop the surveys? Rest? Focus on treatment? Focus on. I couldn't finish. Focus on what? There's no treatment. There's no hope. What would she focus on? She said no. Said she wants to keep working. Keep documenting. Said she needs purpose. Needs meaning. Needs to believe the documentation matters. Even if it doesn't. Even if no one ever reads it. She needs to believe it matters. Because if it doesn't matter, if the work's meaningless, then what was the point? What was her life for? So we keep surveying, keep documenting, father and daughter, scientists, witnesses, recording the death of an ecosystem, recording our own deaths, because that's what we do. That's all we have. Last week, grid section 47, the severely deformed doe, the one we documented 5 years ago, the one with extreme cranial malformation, spinal curvature, three-legged gait. It's dead. We found the carcass. I knew it was the same individual. Recognized the deformities. The mutation pattern. Unique. Unmistakable. The animal survived 5 years. 5 years with deformities that should have killed it. Should have prevented survival. But it lived. It persisted. Did it reproduce? I don't know. Probably not. The mutation's too severe. But it survived. For 5 years. In a dying forest. In a collapsing ecosystem. It survived. And then it died. Finally. Age probably 7 or 8 years. Old for post-war deer. Old for any deer. But especially for one carrying that level of mutation. Fiona and I performed the necropsy. Standard protocol. Even though. What's the point? We know what we'll find. Tumors. Organ damage. Radiation effects. We know. But we document anyway. Because that's what we do. The carcass. Multiple tumors. External and internal. Organs failing. Liver. Kidneys. Lungs. The animal had been living with multiple cancers. Multiple failing organ systems. For years probably. Living in constant pain. But still living. Still trying. Until it couldn't anymore. Fiona took samples. Tissue samples. For radiation analysis. For genetic analysis. If we can extract DNA. If we can sequence it. If. So many ifs. We probably can't. Our equipment's failing. Our reagents expiring. But we try. We document. We preserve. For future researchers who probably don't exist. After the necropsy, Fiona sat down. Right there next to the carcass. She just sat. Didn't say anything. Just sat there. Looking at the dead deer. The mutated deer. The deer that survived 5 years against all odds. Survived just to suffer. Just to die slowly. Just to what? What was the point of its survival? What did it accomplish? It suffered. It persisted. It died. That's all. That's the entire story. I sat next to her. Father and daughter. Scientists. Sitting next to a dead deer in a dead forest. In a dying world. She said, "Dad, I don't want to die like that. Don't want to suffer for years. Fighting to survive when there's no point. When the ending's guaranteed. When death is the only outcome. I don't want that." I said, "I know. I don't want that for you either. But I don't know how to prevent it. I don't know how to stop what's coming. The leukemia. The progression. The ending. I don't know." She said the medicine cabinet. At the station. There's morphine. Old morphine. From the emergency supplies. Probably expired. But probably still effective. If. When. When it gets too bad. When the pain's too much. When I can't. When I'm ready. I want you to help me. I want you to make it stop. Before it gets like that deer. Before I'm suffering just to suffer. Before I'm living just because dying takes time. I want you to help me. Promise me. I couldn't answer. Couldn't promise. Couldn't refuse. Just sat there. Next to my dying daughter. Next to a dead deer. In a dead forest. In a world we destroyed. What do you say? What promise do you make? I'll help you die. I'll end your suffering. I'll kill my own daughter because that's mercy? What words exist for that? She said, "Dad, promise me. Please. Don't let me suffer like that. Don't let me drag on for years. Dying slowly. In pain. Alone. Promise me you'll help. When it's time. Promise." I said, "I promise." The words. They hurt. More than anything. More than watching the ecosystem collapse. More than documenting extinction. More than 7 years of recording death. Promising to end my daughter's life. That hurt most. That broke me. Finally. After everything. After surviving the war. After losing Roslyn. After 7 years of watching nature die. After all of it. That's what broke me. Promising to kill my daughter. Mercy killing. Assisted death. Clinical terms. Doesn't matter. It's still my daughter. My Fiona. The baby I carried 170 miles. The child I kept alive through radiation and starvation and contamination. The young woman who became a better scientist than I ever was. I'm promising to end her life. And she's thanking me for agreeing to kill her. We sat there for an hour, neither of us speaking, just sitting. The dead deer between us, the dead forest around us, the dying world beyond. What else was there to do? What else was there to say? Everything important had been said. Everything else was just noise, just filling silence. We sat. We mourned. We accepted. What choice did we have? Kieran. He's preparing, making arrangements. He knows. He sees Fiona weakening, sees her symptoms progressing. He's digging. In the cemetery, next to the 11 graves. 12 graves soon. He doesn't talk about it, doesn't acknowledge it, just digs, prepares, does what needs doing. That's how he survives. By doing, by acting, by preparing for the inevitable without dwelling on it. The surveys, we're still conducting them. Fiona insists, even on bad days, when the fatigue's overwhelming, when the weakness makes walking difficult, she still insists. Still documents, still records. 2 days ago, grid section 49, vegetation survey. She collapsed, just, fell, mid-transect. I carried her back to the station. She was angry at herself, at her body, at the weakness. She said we didn't finish the transect. We need to finish. We need complete data. I said, Fiona, rest. The data can wait. Your health is more important. She said no. No, it's not. My health. I'm dying. We both know it. 3 months maybe. 6 months if I'm unlucky. That's all I have. But the documentation. That's permanent. That lasts. That matters. My health doesn't matter. Finishing the work matters. That's what I have. That's what I can contribute. Complete data. Accurate records. Documentation to the end. That's my legacy. Not my health. Not my life. The work. The data. That's what survives. That's all that survives. She's right. The data survives. Even if no one reads it. Even if there's no future. The data exists. The documentation exists. Physical records. Written records. Digital backups. Multiple formats. Multiple locations. If civilization ever. If humanity ever. If someone finds this. They'll know. They'll understand. What we did. What we lost. How long it took. How the collapse progressed. Species by species. Generation by generation. Year by year. Until nothing was left. Until everything was gone. They'll know. Because we documented it. Because Fiona documented it. To the end. To her end. Yesterday. Final survey. Grid section 47. Fiona insisted. Said she wanted to see it one more time. The dead forest. The gray snags. The lifeless soil. The place where we documented the severely deformed doe 5 years ago. The place where the collapse became undeniable. Became real. She wanted to see it again. One last time. We walked slowly. Fiona's pace. Stopping frequently. Her breathing labored. Her strength failing. But we made it. Made it to section 47. Stood in the dead forest. Surrounded by dead trees. Dead soil. Dead silence. No birds. No insects. No wind moving through living branches. Just silence. Complete silence. The silence of extinction. The silence of collapse. The silence of the end. Fiona said this is what we did. This is what nuclear war means. Not just cities destroyed. Not just people dead. This. All of this. Centuries of forest. Millions of years of evolution. Thousands of species. Entire ecosystems. Gone. In 12 years. From thriving to extinct in 12 years. That's what we did. That's our legacy. Not civilization. Not progress. Not achievement. This. Death. Extinction. Silence. This is what humans created. This is what we leave behind. I said yes. This is what we did. This is what we're documenting. So that if anyone, if there's ever, so they know, so they understand, so they never, so they don't repeat it. She said, will they learn? Will anyone learn? Or will they just do it again? Destroy again? Create more dead forests, more extinct species, More dying children. More. More suffering. Will they learn? Or is this just human nature? Destruction. Is that what we are? Destroyers? I said I don't know. I hope they learn. I hope someone learns. But I don't know. All I know is we documented it. We witnessed it. We recorded the truth. What they do with that truth, if anyone ever sees it, that's not in our control. All we control is the documentation, the accuracy, the completeness, the honesty. That's what we give them. The truth. What they do with it, that's their choice. Like it was our choice. The choice that led to this. To standing in a dead forest with my dying daughter. Discussing human nature and extinction and whether anyone learns. That's where our choices led. Maybe their choices will be different. Maybe not. But they'll have the data. They'll have our documentation. They'll have the truth. That's all we can give them. Fiona nodded. Too weak to argue. Too tired to philosophize. We stood there. In the silence. In the death. Father and daughter. Scientists to the end. Witnesses to the end. Documenters of the end. She said, I'm ready to go back now. I'm tired. Very tired. We walked back. Slowly. Her weight on me. Supporting her. My daughter. My Fiona. Dying in my arms. Dying from radiation we couldn't escape. Dying from contamination we couldn't avoid. Dying from choices made by people who never had to see this. Never had to stand in dead forests. Never had to watch their children die from leukemia and mutations and accumulated dose. They made the choice. We live with. We die with. The consequences. Back at the station. Fiona went to bed. Hasn't gotten up since. That was yesterday. 24 hours ago. Her condition deteriorating rapidly. Blood pressure dropping. Heart rate irregular. Breathing shallow. The leukemia. End stage. Organ systems failing. Bleeding internally. I can see it. The bruising. The pallor. The weakness. She's dying. Days. Maybe hours. Not long. She's sleeping now. Morphine. I gave her morphine. Not the full dose. Not yet. Just enough for pain management. Just enough for comfort. The final dose. That's coming. Soon. When she asks. When she's ready. When the suffering outweighs the living. That's when. That's when I'll fulfill my promise. When I'll end my daughter's suffering. When I'll become. What? Murderer? Father doing what must be done. All of those? None of those? Doesn't matter. Doesn't change anything. She's dying. I'm helping. That's all there is. This recording. This documentation. This is my final entry. My final documentation. Fiona's legacy. My testimony. Our witness statement. To whoever finds this. If anyone finds this. If there's anyone left to find anything. 12 years post-war. The ecosystem collapsed. The forests died. The wildlife went extinct. The soil died. The rivers died. Everything died. Or is dying. The timeline we calculated. 15 to 25 years until complete collapse. We're 12 years in. We're on schedule. Right on schedule. 3 to 13 years remaining. Until complete extinction. Until nothing lives. Until silence is permanent. Until the end is complete. My daughter is dying from radiation-induced leukemia. I'm dying. Slower. But dying. Accumulated dose. Accumulated damage. Cancer probably. Eventually. If I live that long. If starvation doesn't take me first. If violence doesn't. If despair doesn't. So many ways to die. So many endpoints. All of them certain. All of them coming. Kieran. He'll survive longer. Maybe. He's older. Less sensitive to radiation effects. Tougher. More resilient. Or just lucky. However long he survives. He'll maintain the station. He'll preserve the documentation. He'll keep the records safe. That's his role. His purpose. His contribution. Preservation. Making sure the data survives. Even if we don't. Even if no one ever finds it. The data will exist. The truth will exist. Somewhere. Somehow. That matters. That has to matter. Because if it doesn't, if the documentation is meaningless, if the witness is pointless, then what was this all for? What did we survive for? What did Fiona live for? What did Rosalind die for? What's the point of any of it? The point is truth. The point is documentation. The point is someone needs to record what happened here. What nuclear war actually does. Not the immediate deaths. Not the explosions. Everyone knows about that. The aftermath. The long aftermath. The generational collapse. The ecosystem death. The mutations. The suffering. The extinction. That's what needs documenting. That's what people need to understand. War doesn't end when the bombs stop. War continues. For decades. For generations. For centuries maybe. War continues in the soil. In the genes. In the mutations. In the cancers. In the children born damaged. In the forests that die standing. In the animals that live only to suffer. War continues. Long after the fighting stops. That's what we documented. That's what this record shows. To whoever finds this. To whoever reads this. If anyone ever does. This is what you need to know. This is what we learned. This is what we paid for with our lives. With our daughter's life. With our world's life. Nuclear war doesn't destroy civilization and then allow recovery. Nuclear war destroys the foundation. The soil. The genes. The life itself. And that destruction echoes for generations. For lifetimes. For geological timescales. Cesium-137. 30-year half-life. Strontium-90. 29-year half-life. They'll be in this soil for centuries. Causing mutations for centuries. Causing cancers for centuries. Causing death for centuries. That's what nuclear weapons do. They don't just kill people. They kill time. They kill futures. They kill possibilities. They kill everything. And the killing doesn't stop. It just continues. Slower. Quieter. But continuously. Until there's nothing left to kill. Don't do this again. Don't build these weapons. Don't threaten with them. Don't use them. Don't believe you can control them. Don't believe you can win with them. You can't. Nobody wins. Everybody loses. Everything loses. The whole planet loses. We learned this. We paid for this knowledge with everything. With our world. With our future. With our daughter's life. Learn from us. Learn from our documentation. Learn from our mistake. Don't repeat it. Please. Don't repeat it. This is Dr. Dylan Scorp, field biologist, Field Station 7, Columbia River Basin, signing off. Final entry, November 2nd, 2037, 12 years post-exchange. Ecosystem collapsed, wildlife extinct or dying, forests dead, soil dead, my daughter dying, humanity dying, everything dying, documentation complete, truth recorded, witness concluded, to Fiona, my daughter, my colleague, my friend. You were born into hell. You lived in hell. You never knew anything else. But you documented it. You witnessed it. You recorded the truth. That matters. That means something. Your life meant something. Your work survives. Your truth survives. That's your legacy. That's what you leave behind. Not suffering. Not death. Truth. Documentation. Knowledge. That survives. You survive. Through the work. Through the records. Through the data. You survive. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the world I brought you into. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry this is how it ends. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. End recording. End documentation. End transmission. The world died. We witnessed it. We recorded it. Now we die too. That's the end. That's all there is. Death. Silence. Extinction.